Good afternoon. My name is John Morgan, and I am going to be hosting today's session. This is the Getting Started with 2020 Design session dedicated to our 30-day free trial users. I assume that all of you have loaded 2020. You've downloaded it, loaded it. You may have played around with it a little bit. The purpose of this session is to give you some tips, some hints on how to get in and use the basic features in 2020. Now, we do have lots of videos online that you can always go to learn some more of the advanced features, but I'm going to focus on the basics to begin with. Matter of fact, and we'll do all this live, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first 25 minutes or so and really focus on a couple of main points. We're going to look at navigating the interface, where everything is, where you find things on the screen. We're going to take a look at best practices for drawing walls. As I always tell everyone, when it comes to drawing walls, that is the most important thing for you in your 2020 because, or actually any type of design software, because everything's going to be based on the walls. So you want to make sure the walls are right first. After we do that, we'll focus on your products, where to find the products, how to place the products. Then we'll go into the tips for pricing and projects themselves. And then we'll wrap it up with viewing. When you're working, I always tell everybody there's really four main things you're trying to do. You're trying to draw walls, you're trying to place cabinets in the room, you're trying to take a look at them, and you're trying to price them. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And then after that, we will open up your phones. I think there's 5, 6, maybe even 7 companies online with us today. We will open up the phones and let you ask us questions directly at that point. So here's to a good 25 minutes of basic learning and then additional questions, whatever you want to know about, happy to answer those at the very end. So let's go ahead and switch back over here. So I'm going to switch back over and go right into my 2020 Live. The first thing I want to show you is I actually have a perspective on the screen. If you take a look at my basic 2020, you'll see that I have a floor plan, and I wanted to show you the end to begin with. I wanted to show you what your goal is, what you're working towards, and this is a completed plan. I can zoom in, see the cabinets, I can move things around, and I can even go into a live rendering and take a look at what this room will look like. And if we give it a second to render here, let me tilt it down a little bit, we give it a second and re-render it, and you'll see what your goal is for being able to create and present the room to a client. Now, in order to build up to this goal, and I'm going to go ahead and close this for right now, in order to build up to this goal, you need to start a new drawing. There's a starting point that you're going to base all this on. So let's pretend that you are my client, you come in, we're going to sit down and we're going to lay out a room. The first step in doing so is we're going to start a new plan. I already have a plan open, so I'm just going to click New, which will start a brand new plan and give me a blank piece of paper. Now, typically at this point, I can click anywhere I want on the room. I can click on the right-hand side of the graph paper and simply right-click and start to draw walls. I can go through, draw a U-shaped kitchen that quickly if I want to. But before I do that, I'm going to come back and draw walls in just a moment. Before I do that, I actually want to explain what you're looking at on the screen here. First of all, graph paper. Each one of these blocks is equal to a square foot. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, but no matter what size you see them, the block is always equal to a square foot. So you can see you can have a rather large plan area if you wish. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't just draw the kitchen or bathroom. They might draw the entire floor. So I was working on something the other day where I really drew the entire first floor of a home. Had a master bedroom suite, had the master bathroom. It actually had one of the children's rooms on the same floor, living room, what used to be a dining room, a kitchen, and even an outdoor area. Nothing wrong with drawing a whole house plan. Or you could just focus on a room at a time. But you have the ability to do that because of the size of the paper. Now, at the top of the screen is something called a ribbon. If you've ever used Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint, you'll notice that they have ribbons at the top. 2020 is actually using the same exact ribbon technology. And if you take a look at what the options are within our ribbons, I'm going to start to the left and go across to the right-hand side of the screen. you'll see that we have File, which opens up your file options like you would have in most programs. Home, which takes you to your basic Windows features, undos, redos, cut, copy, and paste, and so forth. Room Layout. The Room Layout ribbon will focus on what you would do for the basic room itself. For instance, walls. This button right here would allow you to draw walls. Over here, you have your basic windows and doors. Items. Now, this is where you can find products to place in the room. There's actually 3 different places that you can choose product from. You can choose product from the Items ribbon at the top, and you'll see little icons for the different types of products. You also have a screen down here in the bottom left-hand corner called Drag and Drop. The Drag and Drop menu allows you to click and actually scroll up and down and choose your product catalogs. So if I wanted to use cabinetry, I would simply go to the sample F, which is one of my generic catalogs. But if I sold cabinet manufacturer A and cabinet manufacturer B and cabinet manufacturer X, you would have all those catalogs listed there too. So you can be brand specific as you're working. Same with appliances. If you're selling Miele, GE, or Sub-Zero, Viking, Wolf, whatever it is, you can click on the arrow and choose those catalogs too. So you can be using either generic catalogs, brand-specific catalogs, or you can combine the two together. You can actually mix them in the same drawing. The third place where you would choose is over here on the right-hand side. There's something called 2020 Cloud. Right now, we're actually migrating the catalogs to a cloud-based system. So many of your catalogs, from your appliances to your accessory catalogs, can actually be chosen from there where they're live on the cloud at all times. The benefit to you is that they are automatically updated. You don't have to make any effort whatsoever to go get catalogs, update catalogs, verify catalogs. They're already being updated in the background on the cloud. All you have to do is choose the product that you want to use in your room. Now, over here on the left-hand side, let's go back to our ribbon for a second. Annotations allows you to draw lines, dimensions, squares, rectangles, anything you need for the special types of notes that you want to make on your floor plan. Presentation, this is where you look at it or where you price it. If you think about the presentation tab, this is where you go when you want to give something to your client. You want to show them a perspective, you click on perspective. You want to show them a top view, you click on top view. You want to give them a price, you click on reports. So this is the information that you are going to hand to your customer. The last 2 tabs, you have View, which actually allows you to determine what you see on the screen here, the basic setup screen, and then you also have Help, and you'll see lots of different ways for getting help within 2020. You'll see some features here like What's New and Watch Training Videos. Right now, you're working with me live, but afterwards, if you wanted to, you could click Watch Training Videos and go back and click any subject that you want within 2020 and watch a short video on it. And by short videos, I mean they're somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes long on average. So if you wanted to know how to radius the corner on a countertop, all you need to do is click on the video, click on countertops, go to radius corner, and 4 minutes later you know how to do that. It's very easy and very strategic and targeted to what you specifically need. Now the last 2 things that you need to know on the screen are over here on the left-hand side. I mentioned the drag and drop box. The drag and drop box is where you would find your catalogs. The box above it, called placement, that's where you'll find dimensions as you place things around the room. So you're going to use this box often. And the box at the very top, this is where you'll find previews. If you clicked on a base cabinet here, you'd actually see what it looks like here. It will also give you information as you move around the room, general information allowing you to know what space is available in particular areas. So, now that we have a quick overview of the general screen itself, let's go in and draw a room. The first thing you're going to do when you draw a room is you're going to click on walls. And when you click on walls, you can move anywhere you want on this piece of paper and click. Now let me show you a couple tricks to this. If I click and I move up, I want you to notice one thing. First, as I move my mouse, watch, the wall follows me. It'll move any direction that I move. It's actually moving 45 degrees at a time because your typical angles in a room are going to be at 45-degree intervals. But if you look right here, see this area right here? It says length and it says angle. I'm going to move and make this a straight wall again. If I typed in length, I could type in, let's say, 144. That's 144 inches. If I hit the tab key, T-A-B, tab, on the far left-hand side of my screen, of my keyboard, if I clicked on that, it actually goes down the angle. Now, remember I told you before that as you move your mouse, it jumps 45 degrees at a time? Well, maybe you needed to move to an angle that was 22.5 degrees. You can actually just go in and type that in if you want. So you can go through, type in any angle that you need, and the wall will automatically correspond to that. But let's say that you typed in 144, you hit enter, there's your wall. If you start to move, you'll see this starts to draw the next wall. If I make the next wall 258, enter. There's my wall. If I point up, my next wall will go up. Let's say that that's 65 inches. If I point it on an angle, it'll be on an angle. I'm going to type it again, 65 inches. You'll notice a little pattern here. I use the mouse to determine the direction. I use the keyboard to determine the length, 65. Tab down, 65. I now have a bay window section. So I can go around the screen or around the room and draw as many walls as I want. When I hit the escape key, I stop. So that's a key. Draw your walls, hit escape to stop. And if I zoom in, you'll notice that all of my dimensions are listed here. Right down to this wall that I drew real quick just by moving the mouse is 225 and 11/16. You may not know how to make changes, so let me show you that real quick. Anytime you want to change the length of anything on the screen, simply take your cursor, double-click with the left button on your mouse right on the gray wall, and you'll see a list of all of your walls will appear, including their dimensions. If I meant this wall to be 225 and 1/8, all I have to do is, oops, hold on a second, all I have to do is type in 225 and 1/8. I'll hit apply. That wall is now 225 and 1/8. I don't have to make just microscopic changes. I could have gone in and said, I actually typed in the wrong number altogether. It was supposed to be 215. Enter. When we hit apply, it's 215. So you can quickly go around the room and make changes anytime you want simply by double-clicking on the wall, and it opens up the wall properties. You make your change, click apply or OK. Either one of those will save. Now let's go back. I'm actually going to get rid of this kitchen. Let's do something a little more basic. Let's go back and draw a couple walls real quick. So I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to type in, let's say that this is 212 by 256 by 212 by 256. I'm just going to make a rectangle. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about viewing a room in more detail at the end. But one of the things that I do first, whenever I draw a room, one of the very first things I do is I open up a perspective. See this button right here? That's perspective. Now, if you remember earlier, I mentioned that you could go to presentation and you could choose perspective. Well, my most frequently used items, applications within the program, I actually keep a list up here at the top of the screen. And this is the same list that you're going to have to start off with. So if I know that I create perspectives all the time, I can place it in this little quick toolbar up here, and if I left-click on presentation, it will automatically open up a perspective. It's a one-click feature. Now you'll notice that when I move around that it's very dark and very gray, but if I let it sit for a second, it actually cleans the image up and you'll see light has appeared. If you want to navigate in this room, you can hold your left button down and tilt up and down. You can actually scroll into the room, and you can stand inside of the room, and you can still tilt up and down by using the left-hand button on your mouse. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I just wanted to show you basics on moving into a room. Now, once you've drawn the walls, the very next thing that you need to do is place items in the room. So how do you do that? Well, there's a couple of different places. If you remember under room layout, we had an option here for doors, openings, and obstacles. So I could actually go in here and say, I'd like to place a basic window. Now, basic window is going to give me just a standard window, but if we were to have clicked on openings and obstacles, you would have seen that there are dozens and dozens and dozens of options for windows. So I'm going to click this wall, and it's going to give me a preview. Here's my window. I am moving it around by holding my left button down on my mouse. It's going to ask me a very basic question. What's the height? I'm going to say it's 42 inches. We'll click OK. There's my window. I can move it anywhere I want along that wall. I can even type in the dimensions. See the center line, the width, the wall left, the wall right. I could actually go down and say with the tab key, remember tab, T-A-B, if I click it, it goes down to the fields. I could say that that window is going to start at 115.5 inches. And then I will tab down and say that the width is actually 42 inches. When I hit enter on my keyboard, watch what happens. The window snaps in. If you zoom in, it actually will give you, I'm sorry, I typed in the center line before. I moved it. But it gives you the exact dimension on the window, overall trim to trim. And if I go down to the bottom of my screen and take a look, you'll see that it's actually placed the window in the perspective. Now, I want you to keep in mind something, because you may be looking at other software. 2020 is a software where your perspectives are dynamic. And what that means is, as you make changes to your room, your perspective updates automatically. So for those of you that work with closing rooms, you could have a 50-inch television on the wall, and you could have a perspective of the room, and as you're making changes to the room in your discussion with your client, they actually are watching the perspective adjust live. So you're working on the floor plan, they're looking at the picture, and they're watching it update in real time. And I point that out because a lot of software that's out there doesn't have that capability. What you have to do is actually redraw this each and every time. But with 2020, it's dynamic. It instantly makes changes as you do. So I showed you that windows and doors were at the top. I also mentioned the drag and drop menu. This is where you find lots of different catalogs. So if I wanted to come down here and place a sink base, all I would do is go to a cabinet manufacturer's catalog. I would look at a list of their categories. And these categories should be laid out just like their catalog is in a paper form. If I go to base cabinet and I scroll down and say, let's put a sink base in, I'll take a sink base standard, let's grab a 36, and I'm going to drag it right below the window. It's actually going to stop. It's going to give me a preview of the cabinet. It'll ask, do you want to place a sink in it? And I'll say, yeah, let's take this 33-inch Kohler sink. Let's snap it into place, and there's our cabinet. If I wanted to go get, let's say, a base corner cabinet, typically you would go back to cabinets, you would go to base corner, go to the categories. But we have a really quick feature that allows you to find things right away. If you know your cabinet manufacturer well and you know their nomenclature, all you have to do is type it in, BC36. There's my cabinet. I'll drag it over, drop it into place. I'd like to place a 27-inch cabinet here. B27. Grab it, drag it into place. I'll slide it over so that I leave a little space here for a filler. There's a half-inch space here. I'll type in BF3 because cabinet fillers are trimmable. So I'll drag this over, drop it right into that space right there at the tip of my arrow. That filler's been placed, and it's now a half-inch wide. It's actually trimmed it to fit. If I wanted to place an appliance, I could actually click on the catalog here, scroll up, and find an appliance manufacturer's catalog. So we could scroll up and down, and let me see what I've loaded into here. Looks like I have mostly lighting. There we go. Here's GE Monogram. I'd like to go in and choose a GE Monogram refrigerator. I'd like to choose a GE Monogram freestanding, and I want it to be French door, and I'm going to take this cabinet or this refrigerator, drag it, and snap it into place. Now remember I told you about the previews before? If I click on this, you'll actually see a preview here in the preview menu. If I go back and take a look at my perspective, you'll see that I've placed 3 base cabinets, a filler, and a GE Monogram freezer door French refrigerator. Freezer drawer, I meant to say. Pretty cool. So all your products are actually found here. Now, 2020 has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brand-specific catalogs. So whether whether you're putting a Revachel wastebasket or a Richelieu sink base insert, or you're placing Encoball moldings or White River moldings, or you're using manufacturer A, B, C, D, E, F from your cabinet manufacturer catalogs, you can work with that many brand-specific catalogs. So very, very flexible. Now, once you've placed the items, and I'm going to pretend like I designed a whole room here. Once you've placed the items, you now need to price them. Here's how you price. Now, I want to give you a quick look at your kitchen again. I want you to notice that I have a traditional overlay square raised door. Looks like it's some kind of an oak medium color. We know that's not what you're going to sell your customer. Your customer is probably buying shaker painted white or shaker painted gray or some sort of dark finish on maple. So what we can do is we can go up to the feature called Items. Under Items is an option called Styles and Pricing. And when you click on Styles and Pricing, you simply choose the catalog. Right now, I used over here the sample catalog. It was called Sample F. That was my cabinet catalog. I'll click on it. I'll go to Catalog Styles. It says, what base door did you use? I'll double click on it. It'll come up and give me a list of my base doors. So I can scroll down and I can pick a base door. I mentioned the shaker type door, so we'll come up here. I'll choose the London door. Actually, let's do this a little bit. Let's choose the Geneva door. That's a little plainer and more popular right now. I could do the same thing for the wall cabinets. We'll go down and choose Geneva. I could do the same thing for the tall cabinets, go down and choose Geneva. I could do the same thing for my drawer chargers, my door pulls, and so forth, and even my species. So if I said I wanted to sell a cherry kitchen and I wanted to use a darker brown color, here's actually, I'm going to go with this sable, which would be more of the popular finishes today. When I click Close, if I take a look at this real quick, you'll notice that my cabinets have actually changed. Now, it's a little bit hard to see right here because it's dark. I really haven't put any lighting in yet, so let me just cheat a little bit. We'll put a little light in here. I'm going to make a really bright ceiling light, and I'm going to move it over here near our cabinets a little more. Notice how I'm adjusting this as I move around. I'm going to put a little light in here. We'll go ahead and we'll click on it, and you'll see that the room's going to be much brighter now because I added a little bit of light. But you'll see now I have a cherry cabinet with a sable finish and a shaker door. So you can make changes that quickly to our room. Now, where did we determine door style finishes and so forth? We did that by going to Items, to Styles and Pricing. We clicked on the catalog and we simply went to Catalog Styles. This is tied directly to your manufacturer's catalogs. So if your manufacturer, sells 5 different varieties of white paint, well, when you go there, you'll be able to pick which white paint you're going to use. Is it Bistro? Is it whipped cream? Is it pure white? Is it lacquer white? You can actually go through and make that selection. It's tied directly to your manufacturers. The other thing that's tied to your manufacturer is the pricing itself. It knows that pure white is a 15% upcharge. It knows that Bistro is a 10% upcharge, and it adds those in automatically. Now, where do we show our client how much the kitchen costs? So far we've drawn walls. We talked about placing items on walls. Now we just looked at how much it cost. I'm sorry, we picked the styles. Now let's look at how much it costs. We're going to go to Presentation. See this button right here called Report? Remember, I said presentation is what you're going to hand to your customer. We'll click Report. We'll go in here. We'll do a quote. We'll give it a second. It's going to take a second to load this. So it's going through. It's figuring all the cabinets. I'm going to say go ahead and give us a view of it. So now it's going through, and it's taking the cabinet list. It's adding all the applicable upcharges to it and so forth. And if I scroll down to my next page, it'll show me a sink base 36 in that door style, $480. A base 27 in that door style, the door style is Geneva, $394. The filler, $32. Cherry Sable upcharge, $156. It needed 2 finished ends, and actually here is a Geneva finished sides total for bases and walls both. So right now, our kitchen, to this point, costs $1,852.60. That's list price. you can always go in and put your multipliers or your sell price in, and it will automatically show them what their cost is going to be. So again, I access the report by going to Presentation and Reports. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you before we take questions is how do we look at the kitchen? I've already been playing around and showing you how to move in and out on this one, but let's actually go to something a little bit more realistic. I've only thrown a couple of items in because we just had a couple of minutes. So let me switch back to my other plan. I'm going to switch back to the larger plan here. I'm going to activate it, and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and build a perspective on this again. If you remember when we started, we had a perspective. I'm going to go ahead and build one again. So here's our perspective. Now, let me tell you a little bit about navigating and what you can control in the room. First of all, and this is the key, I move around my rooms a lot. If you take your mouse and you hold your left button down, you can actually look down when you pull the mouse towards you. If you push the mouse away, you look up. If you move to the left, you're looking to the left. If you move your mouse to the right, you're looking to the right. All right? You're doing all of that by holding the mouse down, the wheel. Let me take that back, the left button down. Now, let's say that you wanted to move in the room. You actually wanted to walk forward. All you need to do is take the wheel, W-H-E-E-L, wheel, in the middle of your mouse and roll it forward, and you will walk forward. If you roll it backwards, you will walk backwards. So I can walk into the dining area. I can hold my left button down. I can turn, and I can look into my room. And it will redraw it from that perspective. Very quick, very effective. Now, there's another option that you have when you're moving around. Remember I just said, if you roll the wheel forward, you will walk forward. If you roll the wheel backwards, you can walk backwards. If I hold the wheel down, this does what we call panning, P-A-N-N-I-G. If I move the mouse towards me, I'm simply moving straight up in the room. If I push the mouse away from me, I move straight down. I'm not turning, I'm moving up and down, and I can move left and right. So I could adjust where I want to be. Let's say I want to look up here a little bit more, and then I can let go, and I can hold my left button down, which will rotate. So when you hold the wheel down, you move directly right and left, up and down. If you hold the left button down, you actually turn. That's what the left button does. Now, at the bottom of your screen, you also have some other options. See this little navigation bar? It appears on the screen. See the little button here called Light? I clicked on that a little while ago. Remember, I clicked on Ceiling Light, said Turn the light on, and I moved it around. Well, you have other lighting options in here, too. I could go to Sun. I could take hold of the sunlight, and I could actually move where the sun is in the sky and adjust the shadowing in the room based on the sunlight. So let's say that we put the sun outside of the patio door. I'll go ahead and click it. When I click here, it'll re-render based on that sunlight pattern. So you'll see reflections, shadowing, light bouncing, light being absorbed, depending on where the light is in the room. And you also have on the right-hand side another feature looks like a gear. See the gear right here in the lower right-hand corner? If I click on that, that allows me to determine the types of modes I want to show. Do I want to see wireframe? It's now a wireframe kitchen. Way too busy for this type of perspective. I only use wireframe when I'm working with the elevations. Hidden line, just a plain old black and white drawing. A lot of times we do that because it shows a little bit more detail. I like these drawings when you're giving them to the installers because I think it gives them more of the detail they're looking for of understanding where everything is. We're not trying to sell the installer, just trying to make sure that the job is installed properly. Texture. Texture is what allows you to put in wood graining, tiles, things like that. And you also have a feature down here at the very bottom called Sketch, or Sketch with Edges. And if you give this a second, it'll actually go back and it'll re-render this, and it'll make it look like it's a sketch with a pencil and so forth. So that's just a different type of rendering that you may produce. Now, while this is doing this, I'm going to jump back over to my PowerPoint for a second. And I want to move to the next page. I want to tell you something else that you have the ability to do. When you're working in 2020, you also have the ability to set up what's called Pano. Now, let me open up one live. I'm actually going to go into one here real quick. Let me go into my saved features. Let me go into my kitchen files. And let me scroll down here to the bottom, and you'll see that I have a 2020 pano. And if we take a look at this 2020 pano, you'll see that I can actually take a room and move left and right. Now, the image that you're looking at, I'm showing you on a laptop, but really what that image is meant to be shown on is your iPhone or your Samsung phone. See this box right here? This box actually allows you to slide your phone inside of it and to be able to hold it up against your face and feel like you are virtually in that room. It's true virtual reality. You can use our output with the boxes. You can use our output with Oculus headsets that are plugged into your computer. You have all sorts of capabilities on that. Now, that's a little bit more advanced, but I wanted to mention that to you today because I literally just finished reading an article on CBS, CBS's online, on their website, about an interior designer in New York who's actually going and doing designs for customers and giving them in VR formats so their customers can stand in their condos and see exactly what their room is going to look like. They can turn left and right, they can look up and down, and a friend of mine just sent that because I've been doing a lot of VR work with a lot of different kitchen dealers, and it's the same exact experience. You simply take this, and with your phone or with a VR device, your client can move their body and look up and down, right and left, and see exactly what their future space is going to look like. Draw walls. Walls are found under room layout right here. Just click and move. I showed you where to find items. Windows and doors are listed under layout. The rest of your items are either found in the drag and drop menu or over here under 2020 Cloud. I then showed you how to price them. Under items, styles and pricing is where you pick door styles and finishes. Presentation is where you click on the report to present to your customer. And then finally, I clicked on perspective and showed you the various ways that you could actually present a visual image of your room, right down to being able to show it to them in virtual reality. And by the way, the only thing you need to do to turn your kitchens into a virtual reality format is there's a button right here. It's called Save as 360 Panoramic. If you click on that, fill in your email address and your customer's email address, a little while from now, both of you will get a link, and it will automatically be set up in virtual reality. So you do not need to be a virtual reality expert. You just need to know how to click on the button. So we want you to focus on being a designer. You focus on making wonderful spaces for your customers. Click a button, and we'll focus on making it virtual reality and just blowing them away with the experience. So it's a really cool combination there. I just want to say that if you need or you have any other questions of us, please visit us at 2020spaces.com. We're happy to answer any questions you have, whether it's from support or for the 11% of you who are getting ready to put 2020 to work to making you more profitable and more efficient in your businesses. Contact us there, and we'll be happy to help you do that. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I also want to thank you for using our software. For those of you, the 11% that are about to implement 2020, thank you for coming here today and learning more as you implement it in your businesses. But again, from 2020 and from me, I want to thank you all for being our partners. You know, we've all had a lot of success together, and we're all working hard to make sure the consumers' lives are better through their spaces.